We're talking about Tim Gaspar, who is a lifelong Valley resident, everybody, a business owner. And now, not only did he have one of the largest insurance agencies here in the San Fernando Valley and beyond for over 15 years, he ended up selling that company to pursue being on LA City Council. And he is now here in studio with us. And Tim, how is your mind, body, and spirit?
Oh, well, it's a beautiful Sunday, so thank you for having me, Hector. Mind, body, and spirit, doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day. I had the opportunity to sit here with you. I got to meet some of the members of your team this morning, which seemed like some amazing young people. So feeling good. And it sounds like I have a lot of events I need to add to my calendar.
Yes,
over the next couple of weeks. There's some very cool stuff going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, we would love to have you there as well as we build with each other. And like one of the things that, we really like to home in on is, mental health, because that's so important. And that's why we always like to start with a question like that, But yeah, how is like right here, right now, that those other parts, that mind, the body, and the spirit for you doing, like, as you think about, like, the city council race, like, how are you doing with that?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot. It's exciting. So this is something I've been thinking about, on a daily basis for probably honestly the last 20 years. And so while I was building my business, I've always sort of put myself, or my identity's kind of been as an entrepreneur first, but community involvement has always been something super important to me. So, I've been involved in organizations like the West Valley YMCA for the past, I think, 17 or 18 years, of the Boys and Girls Club and Discovery Cube, I mentioned to you a little bit earlier. So to be able to have the opportunity now to be able to focus literally all of my time on that and pursue a position where that can be my priority is just it's very exciting for me just to be able to focus on this and not have any distraction.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, running a campaign, as I'm sure you're already starting to know, it's going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take a lot of energy. And also, but when you do have, so many pressing issues, and we'll get into those in a little bit, that you want to address, then, it's a good place to really let that energy be in. That's right. And tell me, before we really get into the campaign and your actual platform, what was it about, just to take a step back, about the San Fernando Valley that you just love the most?
Oh man, yeah, that's a great question. I love so many things about the Valley, and I mentioned to you before we started on the show, this is my home, and so I'm a third generation. My grandfather moved here from Louisiana, and was here most of his life. My dad grew up here. He worked for the city. And so for me, I think it was maybe just the way like my dad talked about the Valley, just always just really loving the place that this was and all the different neighborhoods within the Valley and all the different, amazing types of restaurants and people that we have here. I think that the Valley is really, I think it's one of the most diverse and exciting places in the world because you just have so many different types of people that are here in the Valley and so many different sort of unique communities within the Valley. And the Valley is a very special place in regards to just how motivated the people are to get involved in their community. There are so many nonprofits in the Valley that are doing really good work. And most of them have a lot of people that are involved that are really just motivated on a daily basis to make this place better. And I think that's something, I'm sure a lot of places are like that.
Yeah.
But I think that is like a unique thing to the Valley, just the activism and just the fact that people really do want to get involved and make this a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about on the fun stuff too? Like, what are some of your go-to spots? Like when it comes to like breakfast, what are some of those go-to spots that you're like, hey, that's my spot?
Oh man, yeah. Well, I'm definitely a foodie, and, and being a foodie, like the Valley's actually is a really good place to be. So for me, I'm in Woodland Hills. I live in Woodland Hills, and until recently, until I sold the company, my office was there too. So there's a couple of spots that I love. There's a place called Bobby's that's been there, I think I've been there I've been going there for like 30 something years.
Is it like a diner style?
It's a diner. It's a diner, absolutely.
Yes.
And it's great, just old school diner. And then right down the street, you've got Nat's. Nat's is right there. Nat's also has a location in Canoga Park. Also fantastic.
Yes.
So these are like family-run businesses that you just love to go there to support the business. The food's great, and it's just got a really cool atmosphere because you always kind of see like a lot of the same people when you go there. So it's like kind of like, the family where you go there, you see the same people as customers, and then also like, the waiter, the waitress on a first name basis.
Yeah.
They joke to me that when I walk in, they did start making my order because
They already know.
Yeah, they already know. I already get the same thing every time.
Right?
So
Yeah.
I'd feel bad if I ordered something different because then
Right?
they wouldn't know what to do.
You're changing it up. You're changing it up. Like, what's going on over here, Tim? Why are you changing it up on us?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And you know, and recently I had someone actually ask me, one of our interns, like, what's community to you? You know, and like when I hear what you're saying, that's really what community is all about.
That's
you know,
right.
like one, supporting each other, like, you know, the local businesses that then become like staples in the community.
Exactly
you know?
right. Yep.
And also, like you said, like having a waiter or waitress that has been there for years goes to show, like, all right, like that's a good way of someone to make a stable living, you know?
That's right.
And,
That's right.
And then also having like that camaraderie of just folks knowing each other, you know?
That's right. Yep.
And so I really appreciate that because, again, it goes to show like how the Valley is like that. You know, there's these like really tight-knit communities, folks kind of like knowing each other and supporting one another. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Anything else that really for you, like when you, let's say, go outside of the San Fernando Valley, like what are some things that you're really proud to talk about when it comes to our good old Valley?
Sure. Well, so if I'm traveling other places, I mean, one of the things that's like, I'll call it like low-hanging fruit that I can mention from the Valley. If somebody says like, oh, like, you know, where do you live exactly?
Yeah.
I can rattle off like a dozen movies,
Yeah,
right? That took place in the Valley, right? Like,
Exactly.
So, you know, like some of the best known, like, you know, Karate Kid or like
Yes.
Terminator 2, like it's such a long list of these, you know, really famous movies
Yes.
and TV shows that I can point to like, well, this was filmed on that street and this was filmed on this street. And then even like now, like when you're watching a movie, you typically you'll be watching and be like, oh, that's Reseda.
You're like, wait a minute,
right there.
exactly,
That's Canoga
right?
Park right there. And it's just kind of cool. But yeah, and then also like all the amazing people that have
Yeah.
come from the San Fernando Valley, like all the, you know, amazing leaders. We're talking about people like, political leaders like Alex Padilla, who
Yeah.
came from here. You have different, you know, musicians and famous actors, different historical events that have taken place in the Valley. You know, one of Martin Luther King's speeches was at Canoga High School, you know, back in the early 60s.
That's right.
I mean, just all these really amazing things that have happened that maybe in the history books they say like happened in LA, but the reality is it happened in the Valley.
Exactly, right?
So
Yeah.
we want our credit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I noticed that when folks, you point out like certain movies or like, you know, especially classic ones like E.T. or like, you know, even
100%.
like, you know,
Right.
things of that sort. It's like we really are like the backyard of Hollywood for a lot of production too, you know?
100%.
Yeah. And like you said, and it's also like the folks here and like the different communities that are here. And, you know, with that, just like we have so much beautiful things going on here, there's also challenges like that the San Fernando Valley faces. And I also want to talk about that, but like, I want to really like just dive deep into fast forward now into not just your campaign, but prior to that, like, so you own a business, you built it from the ground up, 15 years. And tell me a little bit about that experience and why you also think part of that experience, put you in a better position or a position to be able to, jump into, city council.
Yeah. How is it relevant, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So the business that I built over the past 15 years was an insurance agency. As you mentioned, it ended up being the second largest in the Valley before I sold it. So thankfully that business was a success, but I was an entrepreneur before that and had a lot of ventures that were not quite so successful. So I had a business when I was in high school. You know those moon bounces that the kids jump in?
Oh, yeah.
And like the cotton candy machines and all that stuff. So I had those in high school. And in high school, I was an entrepreneur and thought, I don't need to go to college.
Yeah.
I was looking up to people like, Richard Branson, who runs Virgin and everything, and told my parents, like, I don't want to go to school. I'm an entrepreneur. And as you can imagine, they were thrilled to hear that, right?
Yeah,
like, you don't want to do what? So I was an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur can be hard. And so I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
When I was 20 years old, I ended up getting involved in a lawsuit from a major soft drink company. That's a whole other story. But I was bankrupt by like my 20th birthday.
Jeez.
Literally. So I hadn't gone to school, was bankrupt, and didn't exactly have a lot, going for me. And around that time, I met my wife, Christina, and we met at a nightclub on Sunset. So I always say the old-fashioned way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But she said, look, you're not even going to meet my parents unless you go to school. So I went to school at night. There was an amazing program.
There was some motivation right there.
Yeah, that was the motivation I needed, exactly. So I was in the PACE program, which is made for people that work all day. So I went to Pierce at night for 2 years, and then I went to CSUN for 2 years. And while I was doing that, I got involved in the insurance industry and was working, as an agent, offering auto and home insurance. And when I had been in the business 4 years, I created my own agency, and that was the agency I built until I sold it.
Nice.
And so when I think about, well, what are some of the skills that are like, that I can transfer from owning a business to being in a leadership position in the city? And there's a few. One of them is, when you're running a business, you got to get things done.
Yeah.
You can't just talk about getting things done. You got to get it done. You got to be able to deliver for your customers. You got to be able to deliver for your employees. Because if you make a promise and say, like, we're going to do this year, and then you don't, there's repercussions for that, right? Like, nobody's going to come and say, like, it's cool you didn't, like, hit your goals. Like, you got to make payroll. You got to, your customers will leave. So being able to actually take action and have things happen is a really important thing. That is something that, like, if I say I'm going to do something in my own, I have to get it done. There's not like an option of like, falling short.
The execution piece.
The execution piece is critical.
Yeah.
And then the management piece. When you're in a position of leadership within the city, you have a staff of people that are getting like a lot of the day-to-day stuff done.
Yeah.
And you have to know how to be able to manage folks in a way that's effective, so that they're able to get their job done, and so that they're happy, so that they don't leave and jump to another job. And so being able to manage people is something that, for me, it took a long time to learn how to do that in the right way.
Yeah.
But that's a skill that is just super important in regards to leadership. And when you have a team of people that you need them to be able to get the job done for the community, because regardless of whatever I want to get done and the priorities for me, I'm only one person. And so I'm going to need to be able to rely on a team of people that are able to be able to execute that vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with that, so you decided, I'm doing this, I'm going to, pursue being a candidate. And so what are some of the things that you currently see right now, from both, our city council, as well as, our mayor, Karen Bass? Like, what are some of the things you see there that, they're both doing well, but also where there needs to be some improvement? And again, for like not just, certain individuals, but for the collective, of Los Angeles as well.
Yeah, I think right now, I think for a lot of the residents that are in the city, and especially in the Valley, I do think there's an issue with just community pride, because people are looking at the leadership of the city that's, not necessarily, not everybody in the city council is on the same page. You have like your people that like, some people are further left and some people are further right. And there's not like one cohesive message in regards to like what this city needs to do to be able to improve. And then, I think with the fires that we had recently, I think there's an issue with confidence in regards to the residents of the city saying like, is our leadership really competent to be able to address the challenges that we have? Because, the reality is with the fires, look, there were 100-mile-per-hour winds. And so there was nothing that was going to like be able to put that fire out once it started. But at the same time, obviously, there were some issues with the execution that didn't go very well, right? In the city, and the residents saw that and thought like, man, like, are you guys really on top of this? Because there were some things that maybe, obviously could have gone better. And so when I look at my own community and I think about, what are some of the things that the residents are feeling? So when I talk about people having pride in their community, it also has to do with the way a community looks. And so when somebody, wakes up in the morning and let's say they want to walk to their closest coffee shop, when they're walking down the sidewalk and they're looking at, is there trash? Is there graffiti? Do you have a situation where you have the unhoused? When you're walking through a community and seeing these things, that's impacting how you feel about your community and how much pride you take in your community. And for me, those are all things that need to be addressed. And I know sometimes something like, even just the cleanliness aspect might sound like it's trivial, but it's really not, because how people feel about a particular community will impact, do they want to stay there? Do they want to raise their family there? Do they want to invest in the community? Do they want to create a business in the community?
Yeah.
So all those things are actually really important. And, letting people know that, you should care about the community, and there's people in leadership that also care very much about the community, I think is a really important, it's just a really important foundation that you have to be able to build from.
Exactly. And, what's your take on, Mayor Karen Bass's decision, just going back to the fire situation that you were talking about, which were historical here for, Los Angeles, the Malibu Palisades area, along with the Altadena. But just in general, like Mayor Karen Bass's decision to let go of the former fire chief Christine Crowley. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so that particular decision, I don't agree with it because, look, the biggest thing, one of the biggest things you have to do as a leader is you have to take responsibility when something doesn't go right. So, with something that, this big of an event within LA, such a catastrophe, if you're the leader of the city, the first thing that needs to happen before anything else is you have to say, even if it's not your fault, even if wasn't your responsibility, you have to say, look, this happened. It could have been better. These are the mistakes that were made. That's on me. Period. Yeah. You put a period at the end of that sentence. What you don't do is you don't say, well, I didn't know. I didn't hear certain things. It was actually this person's fault. I'm going to let them go. And so really, I don't, and I think in regards to the actual termination itself, the termination happened shortly after the fire chief was critical of the mayor. So even if that wasn't the reason, there's certain optics on that makes it look like the city is not a safe place to be able to be critical of your leaders. And the reality is the people that work for you need to feel comfortable being vocal about certain criticisms. And ideally you'd want that more behind closed doors, but the reality is this was a very different situation. And the fire chief was also looking to support the people that work under her to say like, hey, we don't have the resources we need. And I do think, and also the reasons that were given in regards to the actual termination itself, they didn't seem adequate to make a decision that big.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, when the appeal happened, I think it went to city council.
Yep.
And I believe city council at the end, there wasn't enough support garnished there. And, the appeal did not go through.
Yeah. Only two people, only two people supported Crowley. And, I think that's unfortunate, but I can look, the reality is if you were voting to reinstate Crowley, you were making a message known to the mayor too, to say like, I disagree with you, and I think in a healthy culture you can do that, but I think there's some fear where some of the council people were thinking like, I really support Crowley, but I don't want to do anything to upset the mayor because there could be consequences for me and my future. And that's, if you make a decision based on that, that's not a good environment that you have going on if somebody's making their decision based on that.
Exactly. And and I wanted to also touch upon, our unhoused homeless communities because, that's definitely something that, continues to be a challenge here in the San Fernando Valley as well. And not only that, the LA City Controller, Kenneth Mejia, in one of his latest reports, which also has to do with I believe it was a court judge's order to be able to do some accounting that Kenneth Mejia was not able to actually do, as the mayor was blocking some of these audits to be done. But the final report that recently came out, does state that the city of Los Angeles has underspent on the budget that's been approved on our homeless unhoused communities. And so what's your take on that? And also the accountability piece that has to do with these public funds that, we've been, paying a variety of different taxes and bonds on in order to address this situation. And yet we still have, a situation where we have so many unhoused folks out in the streets.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So in regards to first, like addressing the spending piece, that's our money. That's I think sometimes people feel a disconnect with where the money's being spent, or like, oh, that's the city's money. That's your money. When you pay sales tax for a hamburger, you pay property taxes, part of the rent that you pay. If you're a business owner, the business tax that you pay, those are all your dollars. And so the city, they have this money set aside. They didn't spend it all, which tells you that there's not really like a business plan in regards to how the money should go out. But more alarming is the money that went out, they can't really account for where a lot of it went. And I think, just as bad, they're not measuring the results. The only results that are getting measured are the recent news that the mayor put out that said that the homeless count, the unhoused folks count, have been reduced, was based on the annual homeless count, right? And so I participated in that, and that's it's a great effort. There's a lot of really great people involved that are, doing the count the best way that we can by driving around and actually looking to actually count the individuals one by one. But it's less than scientific, obviously. Yeah. So it's not super accurate, but that's the only thing you're counting. Yeah. That's you have to be able to know exactly, it's a return on investment. Mm-hmm. So if we're spending $1 billion, we have to be measuring so many different things in regards to how much of an impact is this having. And that's such a crazy amount of money that we're also not taking a look at how much can we actually afford to spend on each unhoused person, right? Because if you take a look at how many unhoused people there are in LA, you got to figure out how much money can we actually afford to spend, right? And then you have your budget. Yeah. So you might say like, well, based on how much money we can spend, we can only spend, $4,000 on each person, right? You might say, well, that's not a lot of money to be able to get it done. But if that's the number, that's the number. And that's what we can afford to spend, because the reality is, in addition to the unhoused person issue, you have a lot of other needs that the community members need, right? And so when we pay taxes, we're owed a return on that in regards to the street services, the tree services, the fire department, the police department. And then what about, I think about all the youth in our community, right? So you got the youth that are living, maybe like looking for opportunity, looking for leadership programs. They don't have anything to do with their time after school. What about investing in them? What about investing in the future of our city that 10 or 20 years from now, if you invest in that now, you're going to see a return on your investment in 10 or 20 years in regards to, kids that turn into adults here in the San Fernando Valley that are going to be leaders because you invested in them. And I think when I think about the folks that are vulnerable, it's also the people that are working 2 jobs to live in their apartment that are like this close to being, on the street, but there's not really any investment being made into them. It's like, well, you're fine. You're not on the street yet. So they need help. These are the people that are working their tail off, working, to keep a roof over their families' heads. That we're not talking about them. We're not passing bonds to help them out. We're just like, well, we don't really see you, right? We don't see you on the street. You're not as visible, and so we're not going to make the investment to make your life better. We're going to pay attention to what's most visible. And I just think that we owe it to our residents to be able to do more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we the latest, I believe the LA Times had a recent, report that, the city of LA is also facing a $1 billion shortfall, in their budget as well. So what do you think, based in this, particular economic times and, these budget projections, as well as, the needs, where do you think you would be most effective as a city council member?
Yeah, I would use my business experience, because the reality is, look, with $1 billion deficit and also just a lot of uncertainty in regards to your point, what's going to happen with the economy moving forward. And most of the signs don't look amazing. I'm an optimist by nature, but there's obviously going to be some trouble. You got to be realistic. So anybody who says I'm going to get elected and I'm going to hire all these new people in this department and I'm going to fix all the sidewalks, you just can't unless you're going to borrow another $1 billion. So the reality is we're going to have to make some really hard decisions. And so, I've been in situations like that in business where there were in the cash flow issue, and we had to make really hard decisions in regards to what we were going to cut and what, which services were critical. And the same thing is true with the city. The city's going to have to take a look at the services that we provide to the constituents, the folks that are paying taxes that live within our community, and what are the services that we need to provide to them, and how exactly are we going to do that with, less financial resources. And I think one of the key issues that we need to address is, so you probably saw, you have this $1 billion deficit. We were $300 million over budget in lawsuits.
That's right. Yep.
And I think something that people don't really think about when it comes to the lawsuits is, one, out of that $300, you're talking about attorneys that got probably close to $150 million. At the end of the day, once they get their fee, but then there's once it's split, exactly right. So $150 million of our tax dollars went to attorneys. So take that $150 million and turn that into how many police would that be? How many firefighters would that be? How many community programs? How many sidewalks could you fix? It's an insane amount of services for that. And I think that a lot of these suits are absolutely valid. They're car accidents where somebody got hurt. They're a situation where somebody was hurt by LAPD, or some issue maybe with a fire truck that hit somebody, or all these things that somebody really did get hurt. But a lot of them are not as legitimate. And so what's happening is the city's become a target, a nice big target for litigation. And at some point, what we're going to need to do, and this would have to happen at a state level, there has to be a cap on municipal, so when a city gets sued, when LA gets sued, there's got to be a cap on what somebody can collect, because that might not sound great, but we're headed down a path right now, especially with these lawsuits that are going to come from the fire that have already been filed. We're headed towards bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And like, that's not like low chance. We're absolutely headed towards bankruptcy. So then what happens to the cities? What happens to the pensions?
Exactly.
For all the city employees? Like, what are things going to look like then? So we have to take a look at doing some new things. And I think that putting a cap on, the amount that we pay out on lawsuits, and again, it has to come from Sacramento, that's something that we have to take a look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I just have a couple more questions. But one is, what are your thoughts on, the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners approved a $2.14 billion budget and for LAPD for 2025-2026 fiscal year. And again, do you think that's, the right investments from our city funds into the LAPD, which also there's a lot of lawsuits that come out of some of those actions of that particular department too.
Yeah. I think, for the lawsuit piece, I do think that the LAPD is the best trained department in the country. And so when you take a look at like a lot of the issues that you have with excessive force, I do think LAPD has a tendency to have less of those based on the training. Still a lot of lawsuits that get generated, but when you read through the lawsuits, some are like just totally inappropriate bad behavior by officers, but some of them are also people that are taking advantage of a situation to file a suit. But I think when it comes to that $2 billion that goes to LAPD, I think people look at that and they immediately imagine like SWAT guys that have like bigger machine guns or bigger tanks and stuff. But I think within that, we have to take a look at, so where's that money going exactly? Because I know, we all know that community policing is effective, right? And providing these services. So you got to take a look, well, how much of that money is going to like the PALS program? The PALS program, for any listeners that don't know, are these after-school programs where kids come to the police station. Sometimes they have like, there's a facility for Devonshire PALS that's in Northridge that has a giant soccer field and, just a really amazing facility. So I think you got to take a look at where the dollars are actually going to see what part of that is going towards community policing, what part of that is going towards something that's going to be more proactive to keep people safe. Because, at the end of the day, in regards to protecting our most vulnerable citizens are the ones that are going to be the ones that are most susceptible to being victims of crime. And for me, that's totally unacceptable. Nobody, regardless of where they live in our city, regardless of where they live in our San Fernando Valley or in CD3 where I'm running, nobody should be worried about walking to work or becoming a victim of a crime or walking to school in the same thing. And so I get it. That's an insane amount of money. I mean, $2 billion is, that's more than 20% of the budget. And so it's a lot. So I agree. We have to take a look at those dollars. The question is, how do we be efficient with the dollars? But also, we got to keep people safe. Because if people don't feel safe, then, it's hard for a lot of other good things to happen in the community if you don't have that base set.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell us, so it's CD3. So tell us, what are some of those communities that, city council member, if elected, you would be representing?
Yeah. So it'd be Canoga Park, which is where I grew up the first part of my life. So pretty much all of Canoga Park, Woodland Hills. It's really all of Woodland Hills. Then most of Tarzana, most of Winnetka, and most of Reseda. And so all communities that, I have a love for, I spent a lot of time in all those places. My grandmother used to live in Reseda behind the Foster's Freeze. I was right there on Reseda and Sherman Way, which is like all the places I remember from the Valley are typically related to like, ice cream or like, something fun for kids, so. Right? Stuff that made an impression on me when I was a kid. But they're all communities that I know well, that they all have equal importance to me. And I want to be, the thought of dedicating my life to be able to make these places better and a better place to live, I can't think of anything better to do with the rest of my life, honestly.
Beautiful. And lastly here, as we end our interview here for today, Tim, what are some words of wisdom you would like to leave our audience with?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Well, I think it's going to sound like cliche, but I think really just the idea of never giving up, because going back to my story when I was 19, 20, being bankrupt with no education and kind of feeling like at that age, you feel like what's yeah, exactly right. But I think just the idea of just never giving up, and also the last thing I'll mention is people want to help you, and I mean people you don't know. So as long as you're motivated, you can reach out to people you've never met before, that they're in a position you want to be in, and you call them and you say, I don't know you, my name's Hector, and I want to be on radio in the future. Maybe when you were a kid, like, would you spend some time with me? nine people out of 10 that you call with that question are going to help you. And I think most young people, they don't realize that. But you can just call people and ask for help. And even if it was just half, it'd be worth the phone call. But they're going to help you.
Excellent. So, Tim, we appreciate you being here in studio with us, and
thank you.
We wish you the best of luck, and we'll continue to check in and call to see how your campaign is going.
Please do. Thank you.
And again, we just want to thank you, Tim Gaspar, who is running for LA City Council District 3.